What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Reek Knows Hoops. I'm your host, Tyreek. It's been a crazy NBA season so far. There's been a lot of surprise teams winning some games, like the Timberwolves beat the Milwaukee Bucks last night. Minnesota improves to 3-1. They're having a great start to the season. Then there's been some teams that we thought were going to be, penciled in into the NBA Finals. They're getting off to a slow start. LA Lakers blew a 26-point lead last night against probably the worst team in the league, the OKC Thunder. And then the Brooklyn Nets are started off 2-3 so far this season, and they're struggling. And I want to mainly focus on the Nets because one of my favorite players is James Harden. And James Harden has been struggling so far this season. And a lot of speculation is because his ability to not be able to draw fouls because of the new rule changes. If you didn't know, the NBA changed the rules over the offseason about players, foul baiting, trying to get, to the free throw line some extra times a game. Trae Young was really good at it. James Harden is probably the best at it in the league, and some other guys too. They really buckled down on those rules, and so far James Harden has not been getting to the free throw line. I read a stat earlier that through 5 games, James Harden has only attempted 15 free throws this season. Now, to put that in perspective, he's never had 5 games where he hasn't attempted at least 5 free throws in one of those games. So far this season, that's been the case for James Harden. And I'm not saying that James Harden doesn't have the ability to be a good basketball player without the ability to get to the free throw line, because he's still one of the best, I think, creative scorers that we have in the league. And what I've been trying to, kind of tell people about James Harden, it's early in the season. Harden notoriously gets off to pretty slow starts during, his regular seasons. He gets off to pretty slow starts majority of the time. And you also have to factor in that he didn't really have a full offseason to really prep because he was rehabbing a hamstring injury. He was trying to play through an injured hamstring that had really hindered him the entirety of the majority of last season, and it crept back up in the playoffs, and he was trying to play through it. So a lot of this offseason was about rehabbing, not being able to, play, basketball, as, typically people in the offseason do, NBA players that play basketball. Wasn't able to really do that, just rehabbing and working out by himself. So that's attributed to a slow start. And also a lot of people are going to point to the fact that Kyrie Irving's not there. They kind of need Kyrie Irving. Look, it's easy to overreact. We did a video the other day that was reacting to hot takes from Bleacher Report. It's fun to do that early on in the season, but it is kind of I would say weird to see James Harden struggle this much. Like for 5 straight games, he's really struggled. Really, in my eyes, apart from like a couple spurts against the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers, Harden's looked pretty bad. He's looked pretty bad so far this season. Not getting to the free throw line, which is, one of the reasons why he's one of the best scorers that we've seen, over the last 20 years, because he can get to the free throw line. And I always tell people, it's good to get to the free throw line. Like, you want to get to the free throw line as many times as you can. They're easy points. If you're having a bad night, it's a way to get into the rhythm, to see the ball go into the bucket. You're able to rest, get free points while not really having to exert really any energy. It's a good thing to get to the foul line. But so far this season, it's looking like James Harden's whole basis of his offensive game is getting to the free throw line, and that's not the case. He looks like he's out of shape. He's somebody that always plays himself into shape. But I've never seen James Harden get his pocket picked so much through 5 games. I think I've seen him get ripped up in 5 games more than I've seen over the last 5 years. That's really what it seems like, and it's a bad stretch so far. But I'm here to say I'm not panicking on the Nets. I'm not panicking on James Harden. I do hope Kyrie Irving returns at some point, because that's just going to make this team, more fun, more explosive. But as for James Harden, I think he's going to pick it up. If we're 25 games in and he's still really struggling, then I might be a little, worried. I might be a little worried. But he's somebody, he knows how to adjust to new rules, and he'll probably find a way to bend the rules, again, like he always does. And people are going to be mad that, he's getting 10 free throw attempts a game. That's just how it works. So for the people that hate the free throw game and the foul baiting and stuff, enjoy it while James Harden is struggling, because he's going to get back to his elite level soon. I wouldn't worry too much about that. But since we're talking about players and teams struggling, as for the Nets as a whole, I might be a little, not worried, but there are some gaps in this team. I would say there's some gaps in this team. There are definitely some gaps in this team. And I think the one thing that's really evident, I don't really think this team has a good, tough interior defensive presence. Nick Claxton is probably their best defending 5 that they have, but he's more so very good on switches and stuff like that. when you look at a lot of championship teams, they always have that guy in the paint that maybe isn't like feared, but they make things happen defensively on the interior. They make things happen defensively on the inside. The Bucks had Giannis, and also Brook Lopez was a very good rim protector. The Lakers, they had AD, they had Dwight Howard, they had JaVale McGee. Those are just a couple teams over the last few years. The Warriors, they always had a good five that could block shots and protect the paint. These teams had that. The Cavs didn't really have that too much, but they weren't like slouches on the inside defensively. This Nets team doesn't really have that at all. They like to run small. Nick Claxton is more of his strength is more of like switches on defensive switches. He's able to guard guards very well in wings. This team doesn't have that, and it's kind of, it worries me a little bit, honestly, because when you're out east, you have teams that really aren't like jump shooting centric teams. The Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis, they play kind of more inside out than anything. I think the Miami Heat are another team that really plays inside out. With Jimmy Butler, with Bam, and now Kyle Lowry added to the equation. These guys play inside out. The Philadelphia 76ers, Joel Embiid, inside out. The Nets don't really have a threat defensively on the interior, and that worries me right now. That definitely worries me. Not something that a Kyrie Irving or a James Harden surge is going to fix. Offensively, they're going to be cool. Like, they're not going to have very many games where they put up 93 points like they did last night against the Miami Heat. What worries me is defensively, mainly on the interior, and just the lack of, I think, toughness on the defensive side as a whole team. I'm not really too sold on like what I'm seeing so far from like Steve Nash as a coach. Love Steve Nash the player. As a coach, I'm not sold right now. He's looked kind of suspect as a head coach, I would say. Bruce Brown started getting minutes, and I still can't wrap my head around why at the beginning of the season he wasn't getting minutes, unless he was hurt or something like that we didn't know about, which it didn't seem like was the case. He got the start last night. It just seems like Steve Nash is kind of like really experimenting. But when you have a guy defensively that Bruce Brown, that's where he hangs his hat on. He has to be a staple in the rotation no matter what you're getting from him on the offensive side. Because, to keep it real, if you have James Harden, you have Kevin Durant, you can afford to have a guy that doesn't really give you much on the offensive end of the floor. I think you can afford that for sure. The Nets, they're weird spot. They're missing one of their guys that they thought that they were going to have going into the season. But the holes on this team are very similar to last year. They do have new guys that they are adding in, but the holes that they had last season are still kind of there. So I'm not hitting the panic button. We're 5 games in, but it could be something to take note of if it continues. And I'm gonna go to the Lakers real quick because we're talking about teams that are struggling. Lakers are one of those teams. LA Lakers. I didn't make a video the other night when Russell Westbrook had his best game, but if I was gonna make a video, I was gonna say this is one of the main reasons why they got Russell Westbrook. For times where LeBron James is either resting or if he, God forbid, gets hurt, which he is nursing an ankle injury right now, which isn't deemed to be too serious. They got Russell Westbrook for those kind of nights because Russell Westbrook can, he can command a team for a game or two, a good team. He can command a team for a game or two, or, maybe a week while LeBron James is out. Now, it looked good after the Spurs game. Russell Westbrook played excellent. AD played very well. The team looked good together. Malik Monk was hitting shots. Last night, OKC, they're up 26. It's looking good again. They're taking care of teams that they should beat. And then OKC, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey lead a big comeback. Darius Bazley. And the Lakers lose this game. And then there was some theatrics at the end. Like, Darius Bazley got a steal. He dunked with like a few seconds left in the game. And Russell Westbrook got mad. He got ejected, blah, blah, blah. This was a very ugly loss for the Lakers, man. And it's not all on Russell Westbrook, but a big portion of this game, I would say, is kind of Russell Westbrook's doing. Counting numbers look great. Triple-double looked amazing, counting numbers wise. But when you actually watch the game, it wasn't great. It was pretty poor. It was piss poor if you ask me. He had the worst plus minus on the team. I'm not somebody that really like digs into plus minus too much because it can be misleading, but kind of telling last night, man. I mean, he had the triple-double. His numbers look cool, but he had 10 turnovers, which is very, very bad. Obviously, you don't want to have double-digit turnovers. And it's the Russell Westbrook experience. Like, you're gonna have games where, you know, he's putting up 31 points, and efficient 31 points like he did the other night, or 33, something like that. Then you're gonna have games like this, and he has 5 turnovers down the stretch in the fourth quarter, and it contributes to you losing this game to a team that we just talked about in the video the other day, that Bleacher Report says that this OKC team can be just as bad as that 76er team that won 10 games. Like, that's what they said. Like, that's what people have really been thinking so far this season, that OKC can be that bad of a team. And the Lakers lose this game, very poor. When Westbrook wasn't on the floor, all they did was run offense, high post offense through Anthony Davis. AD save us. And AD's a very good player, great offensive player, great isolation player. Got to get more fluidity to your offense, because you're going to be, you know, very predictable. I'm sure people probably going to overreact a lot. I'm still, like, pump the brakes a little bit, because, one, similar to James Harden, Russell Westbrook, notoriously a slow start type of player. He gets off the slow starts pretty often. Second, they're missing a few key rotational players. I would say they're missing about 4 rotational players right now. Wayne Ellington, who was probably going to be this team's starter. They're missing Kendrick Nunn, who was looked at to be, you know, a very good spark plug off the bench. Trevor Ariza is not playing, and LeBron James isn't playing, and also Talen Horton-Tucker hasn't played yet this season. So they're missing 5. They're missing 5 players right now. That's a lot to be missing for a team that is looking to win a championship. So of course it's not going to look amazing early on. I think they'll be fine. I think Russell Westbrook is going to improve. It's just a fact of him and LeBron James, and even AD, figuring out how to, you know, really share the floor offensively, you know, for, you know, a full game. Like, I think that's the key, because Russ looked very good with LeBron off the court in San Antonio. He looked good in Spurs last night, but LeBron's going to be on the court when it matters. AD's going to be on the court when it matters. I will say this. I love AD at the 5. I think that's going to be a very effective thing, not only for Westbrook, but just for the team as a whole. AD playing the 5, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Against the Spurs, the floor was spaced out. Russ was able to get to the bucket, you know, very easily, and it looked good. So pump the brakes on, you know, panicking on the Lakers. But last night was a very embarrassing loss, you know, to say the least. It was a very embarrassing loss. And another team that has also been struggling. They're 2-3, but their 2 wins, in my opinion, have not been that impressive. The Boston Celtics. Beating the Hornets was impressive, but the fact they took a 41 piece from Jason Tatum is like, I thought we was over this. That was kind of last season. If JT's not scoring 35 plus, the Celtics were struggling in games. Like, they were struggling just to get by. Tatum had to score 50, 60 sometimes for this team to win. Similar this season, I got to give my props to Jason Tatum. He's improved since the last time we talked about him. He's playing a lot better. Getting to the basket, not taking bad shots. I like to see that. But the Celtics as a whole, so far not so good. Still got questions about Ime Udoka as a coach. I'm wondering why Peyton Pritchard has all of a sudden just completely fell out of the rotation, because he was somebody that was one of their more consistent players last season as a rookie. Had a very good summer league, good preseason, and now he's pretty much fell out the rotation, and that's just kind of odd to me. Very odd to me. I'm wondering if they're going to continue to play Al Horford and Robert Williams together. Hasn't been amazing. I think this team, like, there's talent there. There's definitely talent there. It's just like, who outside of JT and JB, even though JB put up a stinker last night, but those are your best 2 players, your best 2 offensive players easily, and your best 2 players overall. Who is going to be the guy outside of them that's going to be a consistent third creator? A consistent third creator, because if it's not Tatum creating, if it's not Brown creating, nobody on the court's doing shit. Like, that's just, nobody's doing shit on the court, you know, other than those 2 on the offensive side of the ball. Thought Al Horford would be a little bit better at that. Hasn't shown so far this season. He's old. Maybe he needs to get into the swing of things. He hasn't really played real NBA basketball in months because OKC shut him down. Is it going to be Schroeder? I would hope so. I think Dennis could be that third guy. I don't think it's going to be Marcus Smart. I damn sure don't think it's going to be Josh Richardson. I thought he would be better. He's been pretty bad so far this season. The spark plug for this team has been Jabari Parker. Like, he had a big game against the Hornets the other night. He had 7 points off the bench last night. He just can't play because he can't defend a damn thing on the court. So it's like, the Celtics, the offseason looked pretty cool. I was like, okay, not big names, but it looks good. It looks good on paper. Maybe these guys can find themselves in this new offense, in this new system. So far, it hasn't really been that. So far, it has not been that. The Marcus Smart experience, one game he'll play really well offensively, and the next game he doesn't give you anything. He gives you one field goal. Celtics, so far, I'm not loving what I've been seeing. Maybe I'm a little more harsh on them because I watch them every single night. But I'm not really loving what I'm seeing. Shout out to the Wizards, though. I told y'all before the season, and people kind of laughed at me when I said this Wizards team can seriously be a playoff team. And so far, they've been playing really well. The additions of Dinwiddie, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma have been so good. And if I'm not mistaken, Roy Hachimura has not played a single game this season yet. Daniel Gafford just went out with an injury last night. They said he'll be fine. It's nothing serious, no structural damage or anything. They've been really good. Aaron Holiday, another pickup. This team, front office, Coach Wes Unseld Jr., doing a very good job, man. So, I mean, that's pretty much this NBA season, man. Like, so far, the teams that we thought were going to be really good have been struggling. The Nets, the Lakers. Some people thought the Celtics, some people were really high on the Celtics. I wasn't that high on them, but some people had them having home court. They've been struggling so far. Teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves, teams like the Charlotte Hornets. People thought the Knicks were going to take a step back. People thought the Bulls were going to, not be as good as their offseason signings could have made them. So far, they've been really good. Those teams have been really good. The Kings picked up a good win last night in Phoenix. Harrison Barnes, the best player in the league right now, it seems like, hit a three-pointer at the buzzer. Very good game. I'm rooting for the Kings. I'm rooting for the Timberwolves. I want these teams to make play-in pushes at least. I want them to be those kind of teams because they got really good fan bases. And those teams haven't had a lot of success over the last 15 years. So those teams deserve, some postseason love at least. And I'm going to talk about the Timberwolves real quick because so far, it's 4 games. I think they got off to a good start last season and the year before, it seems like. They look really good, not only on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, this team looks really good. Giannis did tear them up last night, but that is Giannis. That's an MVP, a Finals MVP, a champion, one of the best players that we've ever seen. I love what I'm seeing from the team on the defensive side of the ball. Jared Vanderbilt, Jaden McDaniels, Patrick Beverley, 3 important key pieces to the team on that side of the floor. Anthony Edwards has not been bad on the defensive side. And, I've even seen D'Angelo Russell getting into passing lanes, making a lot of deflections and stuff. And offensively, they have 3 legit scores. Like, D'Lo was very good last night. Anthony Edwards helped close that game last night. And we know Cat is one of the most talented offensive bigs of all time, honestly. I'm loving what I'm seeing from this Timberwolves team. I think as long as they stay healthy, man, this is a play-in caliber team, I think, at the very least. I really love what I'm seeing. The Blazers got a big win last night. They blew out the Memphis Grizzlies, who have been another team that's been surprising early on. CJ played really well. But what I took note of, I love that Anthony Simons and Nasir Little are making the most of their minutes. I wanted to say that before the season when we were talking about guys that were breaking out this year. I didn't think that those guys were going to break out, but I think that they were going to find consistent time in the rotation. So far, it's been pretty good. They've been getting consistent minutes, and they've been making the most of those minutes. Anthony Simons had a big game last night. He really helped, Portland stay in the game in the first half. He couldn't miss in that first half. Very good offensive game. Nasir Little has consistently been putting up like almost double-figure points every game this season. He's been very good. I think that's going to be key for this Blazer team if they want to do anything. And I guess it's cool that so far they're, I think, 500 right now. And Dame has been bad. CJ's really been the go-to scorer. Dame's been bad so far this season. But Dame, he's a good playmaker. He's still going to affect the game, even if he's not hitting the shots. So, yeah, like Dame, I think he's going to be fine, too. He's another guy that really excelled at drawing fouls. He's been struggling. He's going to be fine. He's going to figure it out. And he's going to have, stretches where he can't stop putting up 30 points a game. That's just how Dame rolls. The guys that are struggling, the superstars, they're going to figure it out. They are adjusting their games. They're going to figure it out. It's that simple. As for the teams that are struggling, I believe a lot of these teams will figure it out. But it's a little more than just, guys playing better. It's a lot of, I think system, stuff like, or fit-wise stuff. Like, it's stuff like that that might hinder them. I would just say I think the Nets should be very happy that the Lakers are also struggling, because if not, we would look at Brooklyn like a dumpster fire. But not a lot of people are talking about the Brooklyn Nets, and their struggles, I think, have been worse than the Lakers so far, in my personal opinion. But Great NBA season so far, man. Knicks, Bulls tonight, I think at 7 o'clock. It's not on national TV, but I'm excited for that game. I can't remember the last time I was geeked up for a Bulls versus Knicks game, but I'm excited for it. Make sure you go tune in. 4-1 against, or 4-0, I think, against the 3-1 Knicks, who just blew out Philly the other night, looking very good. That might be the game of the early season so far. So make sure y'all tune in, and I'll be sure to be back tomorrow to talk about it with y'all. But as always, appreciate y'all for tuning in. Leave a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, share if you can. It's Reading Those Hoops, man, and I'm out. Peace.